The late autumn wind in Carroll Gardens had teeth. It bit at my cheeks the second I stepped outside Sunrise and Sons to check the line. It was barely 8 in the morning. The sky over Brooklyn was the color of old stone, promising rain, but the line for the community bread day snaked down the block. Inside was a different world. It was too hot, smelling of scorched flour, sugar, and the bitter steam from the espresso machine. It was too loud. This was not our usual Saturday. This was a media event, a local news channel. Brooklyn Beat had their van parked outside, a thick black cable running across our welcome mat. They called it the Community Bread Day. But it felt more like an invasion. Microphones, cameras, and bright lights that made the cozy yellow walls of the bakery look harsh and pale. People were holding up their phones, hashtagging. Mr. Rossi, the owner, was sweating in his best suit. I just wanted to be in the basement, kneading the next batch of sourdough. My name is Clara Santos. I am 26 years old. I just work here part-time. My real passion is at the community library, where I volunteer reading to the children. They call me Little Reader. The main event was the Pane di Casa raffle, a massive 10-pound loaf, rustic and beautiful, that I had pulled from the deck oven myself just 2 hours ago. A reporter with a plastic smile pushed a microphone toward me. And here is Clara, one of the bakery's finest. Tell us, Clara, what is the secret to the Sunrise and Sons magic? I forced a smile. No magic, just flour, water, salt, and thyme. She laughed, a high, thin sound. Let's cut it open for the prize drawing. This was the signal. I picked up the long, serrated bread knife. The crust was perfect, deep brown and crackling. I centered the blade and pushed down, the crump of the crust breaking. A sound I usually loved, felt too loud in the sudden quiet of the shop. I sawed through the dense, beautiful crumb, and the knife hit something. It was not a nut, not a fruit. It was paper. I stopped. My blood went cold, colder than the wind outside. I pulled the halves apart. Tucked deep inside the warm, steaming center of the loaf was a small, folded piece of paper. It was dry, somehow, wrapped in what looked like wax paper before being baked in. My first thought was a prank, a joke from one of the other bakers. I pulled it out. My fingers, dusted with flour, fumbled with the wax. I unfolded the note. The reporter leaned in, her camera operator zooming tight on my hands. What is that? A prize inside the bread. How festive. It was not festive. My eyes scanned the lines. It was messy handwriting, a mix of characters I did not recognize. Maybe Japanese, maybe Italian, and then a long string of numbers, like a bank account. Below it, scribbled in frantic English, help the girls, 9 p.m., Pier 43, G. I must have gone pale. The reporter, sensing drama, snatched the note from my hand. What does it say? She asked, her eyes wide. She read it aloud, her voice amplified by the microphone. Help the girls, Pier 43, G. What is this? A woman in the crowd shrieked. She found something in the bread, a thing. Panic is stupid. It is fast. The word thing morphed into needle. Then poison. The crowd surged back. People dropped their pastries. The community event dissolved into chaos. What did you put in the bread? Someone yelled at Mr. Rossi. The reporter was shouting into her camera. An unfolding situation at Sunrise and Sons, a strange note, possibly a threat, found baked inside a loaf of bread. In the chaos, a man lunged. He was not a reporter. He was wearing a dark coat, his face pinched and gray. He did not go for the bread. He went for me. He tried to grab the note, which the reporter was still holding. "Give me that," he growled. I grabbed the note back instinctively. He lunged again, his fingers closing around my wrist, hard. Then the world shifted. A wall of black wool and muscle slammed into the man, shoving him back into the crowd. A heavy, stabilizing hand landed on my shoulder. "Enough." The voice was low, deep, and cut through the panic like a foghorn. I looked up. Luca DeLuca. He was not a regular, not really. He owned the logistics company down the street. He was 33 years old, handsome in a way that hurt to look at, all sharp angles and old shadows. He was the son of that DeLuca family, the one people whispered about but never named. He was trying to make his business clean. Everyone knew it, but the shadow of his father was long. He did not look at me. He kept his body between me and the crowd. The man in the gray coat had vanished. Luca grabbed one of the heavy, movable stanchions, the velvet rope barriers we had set up for the line, and dragged it sideways. With a loud scraping noise, he wedged it between the counter and the door frame, creating a solid barrier. He effectively sealed me, himself, and the bakery staff inside, pushing the frantic reporters and the panicked crowd back toward the door. He turned to the reporter, who was still filming. His eyes were flat, dead calm. "The show is over. Get out." He did not shout. He did not have to. The crew and the crowd stumbled back out onto the sidewalk, the cold air rushing in to fill the space. "Mr." Rossi locked the door behind them. The bakery was suddenly, terribly silent, save for the hum of the ovens and the shouting outside. My hand was shaking. I was still clutching the note. "We have to call the police," I said, my voice trembling. "That man, the note, Pier 43, that is where they do nothing." Luca said. He was looking at the note in my hand. His focus was absolute. "Do not call them." "What are you talking about? This is a threat, or a cry for help. Help the girls. We have to give this to the police. It is evidence." He finally looked at me. His gaze was heavy, assessing. "You give that to the precinct," he said, his voice quiet, "and two things will happen. One, it will vanish from an evidence locker in less than an hour. Two, the person who wrote it, Gio, will be dead by midnight, assuming he is not already." I flinched. "You do not know that." "I do," he said. The certainty in his voice chilled me more than the note had. "This is how they work. The people who use Pier 43, they are not stupid. They do not leave notes in bread unless they are desperate. Or," he paused, "unless it is a trap, a way to flush out who is listening. You call the cops. You confirm someone is listening. They clean the scene. They silence the messenger. You protect the note." I stared at him, the man who moved like a panther, the man whose family name was synonymous with the kind of violence that stole people in the night. "Who are they?" I whispered. He did not answer. Instead, he held out his hand, not to take the note, but to point. "Let me see it." I held it steady. He leaned in, close enough that I could smell the faint scent of expensive cologne and cold wool. He did not touch the paper. He just looked. His jaw tightened. It was almost invisible, just a clench of muscle. "What?" I asked. He pointed to the bottom corner of the paper. It was barely visible, an embossed stamp pressed into the fiber. No ink. There. I squinted. It was a sunburst, a sunflower, Girasol freight. The name meant nothing to me. It meant everything to him. I saw it in the sudden, dangerous light in his eyes. Girasol, the rival logistics company, the one run by Gianni Vassallo, the old bloody enemy of the De Luca family. He straightened up. The moment was gone. He was calm again. This changes things. I am still calling the police, I said, though my conviction was fading. No, he said. It was not a request. Not yet. You want to help those girls. You keep that paper safe. You keep it away from the news. You keep it away from the cops. And you keep it away from Girasol. Safe where that man... He saw my face, the reporters, my name. I thought of the library, my other job, the kids who called me Little Reader, because I was the only one small enough to sit in the reading nook with them. I thought of the archive room in the basement, locked, secure, fireproof. The library, I said. I can lock it in the archive. Good. We go now. I'm not letting you walk down the street with that thing in your pocket after what just happened. They know the note exists. They know you found it. They will be watching. A shiver of real fear went down my spine. The man in the gray coat. I looked at Luca De Luca. He was offering protection, but it felt like a cage. He was the son of a monster, trying to be a good man. Or maybe he was just a different kind of monster. But he was right. I could not go to the police, and I could not stay here. I nodded, my throat tight. All right, I will keep it secret, for now, but you take me to the library, and you wait outside while I lock it up. He gave a curt nod. Get your coat. I looked back at the beautiful, ruined loaf of pane di casa, steaming on the counter. The community bread day was over. Something much older and much darker had just begun. The walk to the library was only 4 blocks, but it felt like crossing a desert. Carroll Gardens, with its cozy brownstones and tidy front gardens, usually felt like a village. Today, it felt exposed. Every passing car, every person walking their dog, seemed to be watching. Luca De Luca did not take my arm. He did not hover. He simply walked beside me, a solid, silent presence that acted as a physical barrier to the world. He moved with an unsettling economy of motion, his gaze constantly sweeping the street, the rooftops, the parked cars. He was a man built for this, and I was a woman built for flour and books. When we reached the library, he stopped at the main entrance. I will wait here. I nodded, grateful he was honoring my request. I hurried inside, the scent of old paper and floor wax instantly calming my nerves. This was my sanctuary. I went straight to the archive room in the basement, the one place the children were not allowed. It was cool and dark. I used my staff key, entered, and locked the heavy door behind me. For a moment, I just leaned against the metal shelving, breathing. I took the note from my pocket, helped the girls, 9 p.m., Pier 43, G, and the Girasol freight emboss. I unlocked one of the fireproof cabinets, the ones reserved for the oldest, most fragile borough records. I slipped the note into an acid-free envelope, placed it inside an empty archival box, and locked the cabinet. It was done. It was safe. But I did not leave. I could not. Girasol Freight? The name echoed in my head. Luca knew it. He feared it, or hated it. I went to the microfiche station. The heavy beige machine hummed to life, casting a sickly green glow in the dim room. I pulled the donation ledgers for the past 5 years. My hands were steady now. This was my work. Research. Finding patterns. I spooled through the films. It took me 15 minutes. There it was. Girasol Freight, a donation of $5,000. The date 3 years ago. The purpose: sponsor for the Sunrise and Sons Community Bread Day. My stomach tightened. This was not new. They had a history with the bakery, with the event. I pulled the archive films for the Brooklyn Beat newspaper, searching for the corresponding week. My heart hammered against my ribs. I found the article. It was small, buried on page 6. Community concerns rise as 2 teens go missing. 2 immigrant girls, sisters, who had been working at a local diner. They had vanished after their shift. The police report noted they were undocumented, and the case was listed as low priority, a probable runaway situation. The same week, Girasol funded the bread day. I felt a cold, familiar sickness rise in my throat. I thought of my cousin, Elena. She had been 19, fresh from our family home, eyes full of stupid, beautiful hope about making it in New York City. She had vanished, too. No note, no police leads, just a void where a person used to be. It was a wound that never healed, and this note, this discovery, was pressing right on the scar. I could not turn away. I would not. When I came back upstairs, the main reading room was empty save for Luca. He was standing by the window, not looking at the books, but at the street. He turned as I approached. He did not have to ask. He saw it on my face. "You did more than lock it up," he stated. "They sponsored the bread day 3 years ago, oh," I said, my voice low and flat. The same week, 2 immigrant girls disappeared. The case went nowhere. He was silent for a long time. The shadow of his family, the one he tried to escape, seemed to fill the space between us. "Gianni Vassallo," he said finally, the name tasting like ash in his mouth. "He is over 40. He inherited Girasol from his uncle and turned it into this. He is smart. He does not use muscle if he can use a modem. He runs refrigerated trucks, shipping containers. He built a logistics app, all legitimate on the surface. But it is a front. He uses algorithms to route his trucks, finding blind spots in the patrol routes, avoiding way stations. He moves cargo that is not on any manifest. He moves people. Clara. Then this, I held up my key to the archive, is proof. We take this to the police. Now. I do not care if they... No. He stepped closer, his intensity a physical force. "I told you, you walk into the 84th precinct with this. Gianni knows before you finish your statement. He has officers on his payroll. You will not be helping those girls. You will be getting them. And G killed. So we do nothing, we just let it happen. 9 o'clock at Pier 43. "I did not say we do nothing," he countered, his voice dangerously soft. "I said we do not use them. I have an associate, a private detective. She's former NYPD, but she left because she's clean. We give the information to him. He knows how to get it to the right people. People Gianni cannot touch." "An associate," I repeated, the word sounding foreign. "You mean one of your father's men?" His eyes hardened. "He is a man I trust, and I give you my word, Clara, no one will touch you. I will not let them." The promise hung in the air, heavy and absolute. It was meant to be reassuring, but it felt like a trap. As we stood there, my gaze drifted past him, to the wall of framed photographs documenting old Brooklyn. There it was, a large black and white print of Pier 43 from the 1950s, men in flat caps hauling wooden crates of oranges off a cargo ship. The sign above it was faded, but clear. It was once a bustling fruit pier. Now, I knew it was mostly abandoned, a perfect dark gateway for truck exchanges. "You knew," I whispered. "You knew what Girasol was." "I knew what he was," Luca corrected. "I did not know he was using a neighborhood bakery to pass messages or to find victims." "You talk about violence like you know it." He did not look away. "I hate violence, Clara. I have seen what it does, but I understand it, and I know how to use it. Do not make the mistake of thinking I am my father. But do not make the mistake of thinking I am not his son, either." The honesty of it terrified me, but it also settled me. I needed to set my own terms. "All right, we use your detective, but I am not running. I am not some package to be hidden in a safe house. I found the note. I am in this." I met his gaze, holding it. "Whatever you do, Luca, do not take away my choice. You try to lock me away for my protection. I will walk straight to the police. I mean it." He watched me for a long moment, an unreadable expression in his dark eyes. He saw the baker, the little reader, but he also saw the woman who had just cross-referenced microfiche to connect a killer. He gave a single, sharp nod. "You will not be locked away." "Good," I said. "Now we go back to the bakery." He raised an eyebrow. "The note was in one loaf." I explained. "I need to know why that loaf. I need to know who it was for." Sunrise and Sons was dark when we returned. Mr. Rossi, his face pale and drawn, let us in through the back door. The shop was a mess of abandoned pastry boxes and spilled coffee. I went behind the counter, the familiar space grounding me, the residual warmth of the ovens, the dusty scent of flour that clung to everything, the faint, sweet smell of the sourdough starter, our mother bubbling quietly in her tub. This was my world, the world of yeast and heat and patience. It was the complete opposite of the cold, fast, digital world Gianni Vassallo operated in. Luca was in the small office with Mr. Rossi, checking the day's order slips. "Here, Mr. Rossi called out, his voice shaking. I found it, the order for the large pane di casa. I joined them. The order was placed online, paid for with a prepaid credit card, anonymous. It was not for one loaf. It was for 10 loaves, and it was not for pickup. It was a delivery order." "When?" Luca asked. "Last night," Mr. Rossi said, his hands trembling. "A late order, after midnight, for delivery to Pier 43. I froze. "We sent bread to Pier 43. "Yes," Mr. Rossi whispered. "We assumed it was for the night watchman, a new contract. I did not think—" "Who baked them?" Luca's voice was sharp. "I did," I said. "It was the late bake. I remember it. I baked those 10 loaves myself. G must have been the driver, or someone at the pier. He had intercepted one of the loaves, the one he knew would be opened for the raffle. He had put the note inside. The security cameras," Luca said. "We need the footage from last night's delivery and from this morning's event." "Mr." Rossi fumbled with the digital video recorder. He rewound the footage. "Last night, at the time the order was picked up, the screen was pure static, just hissing. Gray snow. It lasted for exactly 1 hour. He fast-forwarded to this morning. The footage was clear. We saw the crowd. We saw me smiling, holding the knife. I started to cut the bread. The moment my knife hit the paper, the screen went to static. It came back on 2 minutes later, showing Luca dragging the stanchion across the floor, the crowd already outside. Luca let out a breath, a low, frustrated sound. He did not just have a man in the crowd. He had someone watching the feed. He scrubbed it, remotely. The danger was no longer just a man in a gray coat. It was in the air. It was in the wires. I looked at the hissing screen, and the sweet, comforting smell of the bakery was suddenly, horribly, gone. All I could smell was the cold, metallic tang of fear. The static from the security footage seemed to linger in the air at Sunrise and Sons, a cold hiss that prickled my skin. We were alone. Mr. Rossi having gone upstairs, his shoulders slumped. "My detective," Lucas said, breaking the silence. He pulled out his phone. "He will meet us, and I need to call someone else. A driver." "A driver? Marco Bianchi. He drove for my father for 30 years. He knows every pier, every warehouse, every forgotten tunnel under the harbor. More importantly, his conscience is still working." Luca dialed a number. His side of the conversation was brief. Low commands. He trusted these men. I realized I was trusting him. We met his detective an hour later, not at a police station, but on a bench in Carroll Park, surrounded by mothers pushing strollers. Detective Olivia Park was not what I expected. She was sharp, wearing a crisp pantsuit, and looked like she had not slept in a week. She was Korean American, and her eyes held a profound, weary intelligence. She did not shake Luca's hand. "DeLuca, you calling me means it is bad, or you are trying to trap me. Which is it?" "It is bad," Luca said. He did not waste time. He told her about the note, Curacao, the bakery. I watched her face. She was good at hiding her thoughts, but I saw a flicker of something. Recognition. "Curacao Freight," she said, her voice flat. "Gianni Vassallo's pet project. He is untouchable. He is funding the mayor's Clean Port initiative. He is a local hero. He's moving people." I said. She turned her sharp gaze on me. "And you are?" "Clara Santos. I found the note." I told her what I found on the microfiche, the donation 3 years ago, the 2 missing girls. Olivia Park nodded slowly. "I remember that file. It was closed almost before it was opened, classified as runaways. The officer in charge transferred to a better precinct a month later. Paid for?" She looked back at Luca. "You know what you are asking. I go against Vassallo. I am not just isolated. I am finished." "We are not asking you to go against him," Luca said. "We are offering you a way to finally get him. We just need to know what he is." "He is a ghost," she said. "He is clean. We need proof." The proof found us. The next day, I was at the library, sorting returns. I felt a chill on the back of my neck. I heard it, a high, thin whine, like a mosquito. I went to the tall window in the history section and looked up. A drone. It was small, black, hovering just above the roofline. It had a single, tiny red light, like an eye. It was not a toy. It was watching the building, watching me. As I stared, it darted sideways and vanished over the rooftops. I called Luca, my hands shaking. It was worse when I got to the bakery for my evening shift. Mr. Rossi was waiting, his face white. "Clara, you must see." He led me to the steel delivery door in the alley. There, drawn in thick, bright yellow chalk, was a circle with a sharp, horizontal line through it. Luca was there in 5 minutes. His face was granite. "Curaçaos," he said, his voice low. "What is it?" I whispered. "It is a logistics marker, a tag. It means cargo identified, or prey sighted. They know. Clara, They know you have the note, and they know you are not being quiet." He erased the mark with his boot, grinding the yellow dust into the pavement. "We need to understand the note. Now." We went back to the library. It was the only place I felt safe, the only place I felt I had any power. In the archive room, with Luca standing guard at the locked door, I took the note from the archival box. I laid it under the desk lamp, the jumble of Japanese katakana and Italian fragments. It was not a code. It was phonetic. My mind, trained to read aloud, to find the music in words, started sounding it out. "Oni, do," I whispered. The katakana for ni, the Italian syllable do, nido. I looked up at Luca. Nido, it means nest in Italian. He went still. His blood seemed to stop. "Nido," he repeated. "Not just nest. It is a name. Warehouse. N. Dock. O. On the north side of the port. It is an old, abandoned warehouse. Gianni's father used to store spoiled produce there. Now, they call it Nido. It is Girasol's hidden warehouse, his nest." The pieces clicked into place. The girls, the note, the pier. "And it is invisible," Luca continued, thinking aloud. "The city is so focused on the Clean Port campaign, all the official piers. No one is looking at the derelict ones. Gianni is using the campaign as a cover." I felt a surge of bitter anger. I walked out of the archive and into the main reading room. I pointed to the newspaper stand. The front page of the Brooklyn Beat showed Gianni Vassallo in a hard hat, shaking the mayor's hand. The headline read, "Girasol Freight leads the Clean Port Initiative." "He is hiding in plain sight," I said. "He is buying advertisements in every paper, so no one dares to run a story on him. The whole city is helping him." The people are scared, Clara," Luca said. "They see his trucks. They see the police looking the other way. They lock their doors. They do not want trouble." "But the note," I insisted, my voice rising. "It said 9 o'clock tonight at Pier 43. Luca's face was grim. "He will not be there. G is probably dead." "We have to go," I said. "Even if he is not, we have to see. We have to get proof for Olivia Park." "You are not going. You said you would not take away my choice," I shot back. "I am going. I have to see. We watch. We document. Then we have something real." He stared at me, his jaw set. Finally, he nodded. "We watch, from a distance, and you do exactly as I say." At 8:45 that night, Pier 43 was a graveyard of rust and shadows. The air was thick with salt and the smell of diesel fuel. Luca led me to a spot behind a stack of massive, rotting shipping containers. We had a clear view of the pier entrance, but we were deep in shadow. At exactly 9 o'clock, a truck rolled onto the pier. No lights. It was a Girasol truck, a refrigerated unit. My heart was a cold stone in my chest. The truck backed up to a dark, unmarked van. The heavy rear doors of the truck opened. It was not cargo. It was girls, 6, maybe 7 of them, huddled in thin jackets, their faces numb. They were herded from the freezing truck into the van. It was fast, brutal, efficient. I raised my phone. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold it. I was going to call 911. I did not care what Luca said. His hand closed over mine. It was warm and strong and stopped me completely. "No," he whispered. His voice was raw. "Look, at the gate." I followed his gaze. Parked just outside the pier, under a flickering streetlight, was a New York Police Department patrol car. The two officers inside were visible. They were looking down, their faces lit by the blue glow of their phones. They were the lookouts. They are with him," I whispered, the sickness rising in my throat. "That is the proof," Luca said. He slowly raised his own phone, zooming in, capturing the patrol car number, the timestamp, and the Girasol truck in the same frame. The exchange was finished. The van's doors slammed shut. But one girl, she stumbled. She fell to her knees. A man in a dark coat, not the one from the bakery, another one, kicked her side. I acted. I did not think. Before we left, I had packed a bag. It is what I do. I feed people. I had a thermal box with 6 roast beef sandwiches left over from the bakery, 2 bottles of water, and a pair of heavy-duty plastic zip-tie cutters from the supply closet. While Luca was focused on the patrol car, I slipped the box from my bag. I stayed low, moving through the shadows, and placed it on the ground near the corner of the pier, just out of the guard's line of sight. The guard hauled the girl to her feet. He shoved her toward the van. She saw the box. Her eyes locked on it. The guard turned to open the van door. In that second, she moved. She was not stumbling now. She grabbed the box and she ran, not toward us. She ran toward a break in the chain-link fence at the far end of the pier. "Hey, stop her!" A shout, the sound of running boots on pavement. Luca grabbed my arm. "Clara, we have to go, now." He pulled me back into the labyrinth of containers. Behind us, alarms and shouts erupted. One girl had escaped. I turned in my seat to face him. The city light slid over his angled face. "No. Clara, this is not a discussion. That chalk mark, he is escalating. What is next? A fire? He will not send inspectors next time." "And what?" I said, my voice rising, matching his intensity. "I hide. I become your dirty secret. I wait in a locked room. While you and your detective fight a war, I am not a package. Luca, I am not property to be stored in a safe. I told you, you do not get to take away my choice." "This is not a choice. This is survival," he growled. The next morning, the retaliation came. I arrived at Sunrise and Sons to find a white city van parked at the curb. Inside, 2 inspectors from the Department of Health were grilling Mr. Rossi. "We received an anonymous tip," one said, his face grim. "Multiple tips about foreign objects baked into bread, unsanitary conditions, rodent feces." "It is a lie, mister," Rossi pleaded, his hands shaking. "A misunderstanding. We are clean. Look." The inspector just made a note on his clipboard. "We are shutting you down, effective immediately, pending a full investigation. It could take weeks. Weeks. It would ruin him." I knew, with chilling certainty, who had made the calls. Gianni Vassallo. He was squeezing me, threatening my livelihood, threatening Mr. Rossi's life, all to make me stay silent. Luca picked me up outside. His car was a black sedan, warm and smelling of rich leather. He was silent, but I could feel the cold, controlled rage radiating from him. "It is over," he said, his voice clipped. "He is targeting the bakery. He is targeting you. I am moving you." "Moving me where?" "I have a place, an apartment in the Heights. No one knows I have it, and you will be safe there until this is done." I turned in my seat to face him. The city lights slid over his angled face. "No, Clara, this is not a discussion. That chalk mark, this He is escalating. What is next? A fire. He will not send inspectors next time. And what? I said, my voice rising, matching his intensity. I hide. I become your dirty secret. I wait in a locked room while you and your detective fight a war. I am not a package. Luca, I am not property to be stored in a safe. I told you, you do not get to take away my choice. This is not a choice. This is survival, he shot back, his voice low and guttural. He hit the steering wheel, a single, muffled thud, the car filled with the tense, sharp silence of his frustration and my fear. You are infuriating, Clara Santos. Oh, I am not, I said, my voice softer now. I am just not going to be his victim, or yours. His phone buzzed. Saving us. He looked at the text. His anger shifted, replaced by sharp focus. It is Park. She is at the library. She has something, and Marco is with her. We drove back to my sanctuary. Olivia and an older man I assumed was Marco Bianchi were waiting in the archive room. Marco was wiry, with hands stained by oil and a face full of deep lines. He looked like he had seen too much. Olivia Park looked exhausted, but her eyes were electric. Your photo of the patrol car, it was the linchpin. It had the timestamp, the location. It forced my captain's hand. I got it. She held up a folded piece of paper. A limited search warrant for Warehouse Nido. A surge of hope made me dizzy. We got him. No, Olivia said, her voice cutting. We got a piece of paper. The warrant only covers inspection of manifests and shipping containers for agricultural goods. It is the clean port warrant. Johnny will be clean. He will know we are coming. The leak goes both ways. He will show us a warehouse full of Italian olive oil and smile. Marco spoke for the first time, his voice like gravel. And the warrant does not let you open locked internal doors or refrigerated units that are in transit. He is protected. So it is useless, Luca said. It is useless, Olivia agreed, unless he is there, and unless he has the cargo on site, out in the open. The warrant does not let us force our way in, but if we have new probable cause, if we see something, or hear something. I looked at Luca. He was already looking at me. We both understood. You have a warrant, I said, but you cannot use it. You need a distraction. You need a reason for him to be there, and to have the girls there when you arrive. Olivia nodded. We need bait. He is already squeezing me now, I said, the plan forming in my mind, cold and clear. He thinks I am just a baker. He is arrogant, so let's use it. I will be the bait. The weekend street festival was supposed to bring the neighborhood back together. It did the opposite. The rumor of the warning bread had curdled. It was not a cry for help. It was a threat. Sunrise and Sons was the source of it. The health department's bright yellow closed sticker on our booth was a beacon. People saw me standing near it, and the crowd turned. It was the bakery panic all over again. But this time it was not just confusion. It was anger. Reporters, smelling blood, descended. Clara Santos. Is it true the bakery was shut down because of your claims? What did you really find in that bread? Are you working with the police? The cameras were inches from my face. The lights were blinding. I backed away, but the crowd pressed in. Then, through the sea of bodies, I saw him, the same man from the bakery, the one with the gray, pinched face. He was not shouting questions. He was moving, his eyes locked on my bag. He was not trying to scare me. He was trying to get my keys, my phone, the archival box receipt. He lunged. I screamed. A solid, immovable force slammed into the man. It was Luca. He appeared from nowhere, a shadow detaching itself from the crowd. He did not punch the man. He just moved him, a brutal, efficient shove that sent the man sprawling back into the reporters. Then Luca turned, placing his body between me and the world. He spread his arms wide, his back to me, his expensive black coat forming a solid wall. He blocked the cameras, the lights, the grabbing hands. He was a shield, absorbing the chaos. The flashes of the cameras lit up the back of his head. He leaned back, just enough for his voice to reach my ear, a low, controlled rumble beneath the shouting. "This is what he wants. Clara, he is using them to break you, to make you run." He did not budge as someone pushed against his shoulder. "Now you choose. Do we fight him here, in public, where he controls the story, or do we fight him quietly, in the dark, where we control the truth?" I stared at the wool of his coat, smelling the cold air and the faint, clean scent of him. I looked past his arm at the angry, confused faces, people I used to serve pastries to, now twisted by fear. They were not the enemy. They were Gianni's weapon. Quietly, I whispered, my voice trembling, "We fight him in the dark." We went back to the library. Olivia Park and Marco Bianchi were waiting in the archive room. The air was still and cool. "He is using the public," I said, my hands finally steadying. "He is arrogant. He thinks I am just a scared baker. Let's use that." I sat at the main computer terminal. Luca stood behind me, close enough that I could feel his warmth. He thinks I am a little reader. Fine, I will invite him to a story time. My fingers flew across the keyboard. I opened the library's official community blog. I created a new event, a special reading night. I typed, "A safe harbor for new arrivals and immigrant young women, a space to share stories and build community." "He will never fall for that," Olivia said, her arms crossed. "He will," I said, "when he sees the location." I typed in the address, Location Warehouse N. Doc O, by special permission of Girasol Freights, Clean Port Community Outreach Program. I added the hashtags, Girasol, Clean Port, Gianni Vassallo. I hit publish. There was a heavy silence in the room. "You have just painted a target on the entire building," Olivia said. "No," I corrected. "I have painted it on him. He cannot ignore this. If he does nothing, he confirms he is sponsoring an event at his secret warehouse. If he tries to cancel it, he draws official attention to Nido. He has to meet me. He has to silence me personally." Luca nodded slowly. "She is right. He is arrogant. He will want to handle this himself. He will scrub the digital feeds, just like at the bakery." Marco Bianchi, who had been silent, finally spoke. His voice was like stones rolling in the tide. "His digital cameras are new. Mine are old." He patted a heavy canvas duffel bag. "Video 8, they run on magnetic tape. He can hack a signal. He cannot hack a tape from half a mile away. While he is watching static, my cameras will be recording. And you will not be alone." Luca said. He looked at me. "Gianni has paid cops. I have the neighborhood." He made 4 calls, not to men with guns. He called Mr. Orossi, who was already ruined and had nothing left to lose. He called Mr. Alvini, the butcher. He called Mrs. Chow from the laundromat. He called the old men who played chess in the park, his old neighborhood patrol. They would be his eyes, scattered in cars and on benches, a network of watchers that Gianni would never even notice. The night before the plan, the tension was unbearable. I met Luca outside the locked and darkened bakery. The yellow closed sticker looked neon in the streetlight. We stood in the alley where the Girasol chalk mark had been. He stared at the steel door, his hands deep in his pockets. "My father," he said, his voice flat, "would have solved this by now. He would have brought fire. He would have burned Nido to the ground, with Gianni Vassallo inside it. He would have called it settling a dispute." I waited, the cold wind whipping my hair around my face. He turned to me, and in the dim light, I saw something I had not seen before. Not anger, not control. It was fear, a deep, agonizing fear. I have spent my entire life trying not to be him. "Clara," he whispered, "I built a clean company. I pay my taxes. I do not break knees. And now I am in this. And all I can think about, all my instincts, are the violent solutions he taught me. I am afraid I am just him. I am afraid I am going to let you down, or that I will do what he would have done." I stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his coat. "Courage is not the absence of fear. Luca, it is not about not having those thoughts. Courage is choosing what is right while you are afraid. You are not your father. You are standing here with me, planning to use analog cameras and a librarian to get a warrant. You are not using fire. You are using the law. That is the choice. That is how you are different. You are." He looked down at me, his gaze intense. He did not move. He did not touch me, but I felt it, a current passing between us. He just nodded. Once, the confession was over. The next morning I saw two of the young Girasol drivers getting coffee at the corner bodega. They were just kids, barely 20. I walked straight up to them. They recognized me, their eyes wide with panic. "My name is Clara Santos," I said, my voice low and even. "I am from Sunrise and Sons. I know what kind of cargo Gianni Vassallo makes you move, and I know you hate it." You should not talk to us," one of them stammered, looking around. "I'm not asking you to talk," I said. "I am telling you, when this is over, Gianni is finished, and Mr. Rossi and we are reopening the bakery. We will be hiring. We will need our own delivery drivers for bread, real paying jobs. You know where to find me when you are ready to do the right thing." I left them there. I had planted the seed. The bait was taken that evening. My phone lit up with an encrypted, anonymous text. "I know about your reading night. A stupid, sentimental idea. Come to Nido, 10 o'clock tonight, alone. We will talk, or the next bakery that burns will have your friends inside it." I showed it to Luca. His face turned to ice. "It is a trap." "I know," I said, my heart hammering. "It is the trap. It means he is coming, and he is coming to deal with me himself. This is what we wanted. This is how Olivia gets him. I am not letting you go in there alone." His voice was final. "You have to," I insisted. "If he sees you, if he sees anyone, he is gone. This is the only way Olivia gets her probable cause. This is the only way we get him with the girls." He fought a war inside himself. I could see it in the tightening of his jaw. He was trapped between his promise to protect me and my demand for choice. Finally, he reached into his coat pocket. He placed something small and cold in my palm. It looked like a simple black button, the kind from his wool coat. "It is a beacon," he said, his voice rough. "The second you are inside, you press it. It sends a signal to me and to Park. One press, that is all. I will be outside. Marco will be outside. My watchers will be everywhere. But when you walk through that door, you will be alone. You are insured bait. Clara, do you understand? I close my hand around the button. I understand. The first winter storm of the season hit New York City like a fist. It was 9 o'clock at night, but it felt like midnight. The rain was not falling. It was flying sideways, a horizontal sheet of ice and water driven by a wind that screamed off the harbor. Warehouse Nido was a huge black cube at the end of the pier, vanishing into the storm. The weather was perfect. The wind was knocking out power grids all over the waterfront, Gianni's expensive digital security system, his remote cameras. They were flickering. They were unreliable. Marco's analog tapes were safe. I walked to the small side door. It was unlocked, just as the text had promised. I pushed it open, stepped inside, and pressed the button in my pocket. The warehouse was vast, cold, and smelled of rust, diesel, and something sour. In the center, under a single buzzing industrial halide lamp, stood Gianni Vassallo. He was just as Luca described, over 40, wearing an immaculate suit, his eyes completely empty. He was not alone. 2 of his guards stood by a large, white, refrigerated container, and huddled against it, their hands bound with plastic ties, were 3 young women. The girls from the pier. Clara Santos, Gianni said. His voice was calm, almost bored. The little reader, you have been a significant inconvenience. My voice shook, but I did not let it break. You are Gianni Vassallo. You are moving people. You are using your algorithms, your routing software to optimize them like they are cargo. He actually laughed. It was a dry, ugly sound in the vast space. Optimize. I like that word. It is accurate. I am a businessman. Clara, I find inefficiencies in the market. I provide a service. He gestured to the warehouse. You think a loaf of bread and a sad story can change anything. You think you and whatever broken-down mafia boy you are hiding behind can stop this. They are not cargo, I yelled, my voice echoing. They are people. They have names. They are whatever I say they are, he snapped, his boredom vanishing, replaced by cold rage. The main bay door at the far end of the warehouse suddenly roared open. Light flooded in. Luca, he was there, and right behind him, Detective Olivia Park, her gun drawn and steady. Gianni Vassallo, she yelled, her voice cutting through the wind. New York Police Department, you are under arrest. Gianni did not even look surprised. He just smiled at me. You are too late, detective. He reached to a control panel on the wall and slammed his palm onto a large red button. A deafening screech of metal on metal. Heavy steel fire doors, thick and painted red, dropped from the ceiling. One slammed down in front of me, separating me from Gianni and the girls. Another slammed down right behind Luca and Olivia, sealing the main entrance. We were separated. Clara, no, I heard Luca roar. He threw his body against the solid steel door, but it did not budge. It was not a gun. It was not a bomb. I heard a loud hissing sound. It was coming from vents on the side of the refrigerated container, the one Gianni was sealed off with. A thick white gas began to pour into my small section of the warehouse. It was cold, colder than the air outside. It was freezing, stinging my lungs. Johnny's voice came over a small intercom, calm and cruel. A little industrial coolant, little reader. It freezes a room solid in 5 minutes. You and your friends will just be an inefficiency. The gas was not just cold, it was predatory. It hissed from the vents with a chemical hunger, stinging my eyes and stealing the air from my lungs. Each breath was a sharp, frozen knife. "Clara, Clara, answer me." Luca's voice was a muffled roar from the other side of the steel door. It was followed by a heavy, metallic thud as he slammed his body against it. Gianni Vassallo stood by the control panel, watching me, a look of placid amusement on his face. "He cannot help you. Little reader, it is over. You are just an inefficiency." He was wrong. The cold was fogging my thoughts. But one thing was clear. I was not alone. I looked at the 3 girls, huddled by the refrigerated container, their hands bound with plastic ties. They were terrified. They were the reason. My fingers, already stiffening with the cold, fumbled in my coat pocket. The plastic zip-tie cutters. I still had them from the pier. "Watch the door," Gianni ordered his 2 guards, who had their guns trained on the steel barrier. They were not watching me. I moved, stumbling, my legs heavy. I knelt by the girls. "I am going to get you out," I whispered. My fingers were numb. I could barely work the tool. The plastic was stiff. Snip. The sound was lost in the hiss of the gas. The first girl's hands were free. I pressed the cutters into her hand. "Do the others." I turned my attention to the wall. The library, my sanctuary, had taught me more than books. It had taught me about old buildings, fire codes, emergency procedures. There had to be a manual override. I scanned the wall near the vent. There, a large, red, unlit lever, a manual exhaust purge. I grabbed it with both hands and threw my entire weight downward. The metal groaned in protest, then slammed down with a clang that echoed through the warehouse. The hissing from the vents changed. A new sound joined it, a deep, mechanical roar from the ceiling. A massive exhaust fan, the thick, white fog, which had been pooling at our feet, began to churn. It was being sucked upward, pulled out of the room. Gianni's smile vanished. "Clever." He started toward me. I backed away, pulling out my phone. "A phone call," he sneered. "Who will get here in time?" I am not making a call," I said. My fingers were shaking, but I managed to open the camera, open the library's blog, and hit the Go Live button. The small white light of my phone cut through the thinning haze. "I am making a record." I turned the camera on him. His face, lit from below, was a mask of sudden, cold fury. "My name is Clara Santos," I said, my voice shaking but loud. "I am at Warehouse Nido. Gianni Vassallo, the head of Girasol Freight, is holding us. He has trapped us and is trying to freeze us to death." I turned the phone to the girls. "He wants you to be cargo. He wants you to be numbers. We are not numbers. We are not invisible." I looked at the first girl, the one I had freed. "Tell them your name." She looked at Gianni, terrified. "Tell them!" I insisted. "He cannot erase you. Tell them your name." "Maria," she whispered, her voice cracking. "This is Maria," I shouted, projecting for the phone's microphone. "She is 17 years old. She came here to work, and this man stole her. She loves sourdough bread. She is not cargo. And you," I pointed the phone at the next girl. "Anna? This is Anna. She wants to be a nurse. She is not freight." Johnny's guards were shifting uneasily. This was not a clean, silent execution. This was a messy, public witness. They were on camera, their faces. "Stop her," Gianni lunged. Not at me, but at the phone. A deafening bam echoed from outside. The single, buzzing halide lamp above us popped and exploded in a shower of sparks. The exhaust fan whined and died. The hissing stopped. We were plunged into absolute darkness, save for the single, unwavering beam of my phone's light. "What is that?" Gianni yelled, disoriented. "That," I said, my heart soaring, "is him. Luca." He had cut the main power. Gianni's expensive, digital, hackable system was dead. From the other side of the door, Olivia Park's voice was sharp. "Johnny Vassallo, this is Detective Park. We have a warrant, and we have you on tape. Marco's analog cameras are still rolling. We have it all. The analog feed is clean." "Burn it," Gianni shrieked at his guards. "Burn the tapes, destroy the servers." "They are not on servers," I said. "They are on tapes. Old, real, physical tapes." He was trapped. His entire high-tech system, his algorithms, his remote feeds, all defeated by a circuit breaker and a Video 8 camera. Then I heard it, a slow, mechanical grinding, the steel door. It was not exploding open. It was rising, inch by painful inch. Luca was not using explosives. He was not shooting his way in. He was at the manual crank, the one Marco must have shown him. He was choosing the hard, slow, non-violent way. The gap at the bottom of the door was 2 feet, 3 feet. A dark shape rolled under it. Luca. He was on his feet in a second. One guard raised his pistol. Luca did not have a gun. He grabbed a heavy steel stanchion from the wall, and in one brutal, efficient sweep, he took the guard's legs out from under him. The man's head hit the concrete with a sickening crack. The gun skittered away. The second guard lunged. Luca stepped inside the man's reach, a blur of motion. It was not a brawl. It was a precise, controlled dismantling. An elbow to the jaw, a twist of the arm. The man went down, screaming. Olivia Park slid under the door, her gun up and steady. New York Police Department on the ground, hands where I can see them. It was over in 10 seconds. Now, it was just Luca and Gianni, facing each other in the center of the warehouse. The storm howled outside, driving sheets of rain onto the slick concrete floor. Gianni, desperate, grabbed a heavy steel pry bar from a workbench. "You are just like your father, DeLuca, all of you animals." He swung it, a wild, clumsy arc. "Luca!" I screamed. Luca ducked. The bar sparked against the floor where his head had been. Gianni raised it again, his suit jacket torn, his face a mask of sweat and terror. Luca moved in. He did not punch. He did not block. He controlled. He trapped Gianni's arm, using the man's own momentum to spin him around, his feet slipping on the wet floor. They wrestled, a desperate, ugly struggle. Luca got the leverage. He slammed Gianni to the ground. Luca wrenched the pry bar from his grip. He stood over him, his chest heaving, the steel bar raised high. This was the moment. I saw it, the shadow of his father, the fear he had confessed to me in the alley. He could end it. He could finish the blood feud. Gianni, pathetic and coughing on the ground, spat. "Do it. Show the baker what you really are." Luca's arm was shaking. He was fighting a war with 30 years of his own history. "Luca," I whispered. He did not look at me, but I saw his shoulders drop. He let out a ragged, tearing breath. He looked at the bar, then at the man on the floor. He threw the pry bar. It clattered across the concrete, spinning into the darkness. He looked down at Gianni. "I do not need blood to end this." He reached for a coil of heavy shipping rope, and, with tight, angry, efficient knots, he bound Gianni Vassallo's hands. The door was fully open now. The driving rain felt like a baptism. And standing in the opening, forming a human wall against the storm, were the watchers, Mr. Rossi, Mrs. Chow, Mr. Alvini, the old chess players from the park. They were soaked, they were old, but they were there. They held thermoses, they held thick wool blankets. When I led Maria, Anna, and the third girl out of the warehouse, they did not stumble into a wall of police officers. They stumbled into a community. Mrs. Chow, her face a mask of gentle concern, stepped forward and wrapped a blanket around Maria, pulling her into a hug, murmuring to her in a language I did not understand. Then, the flashing lights, the real press. They must have been listening to Olivia's scanner, or maybe my live stream had found its way out. They surged forward, a wall of microphones and cameras, Onihado pushing past the police line. De Luca, is this a mafia war? Is that Gianni Vassallo? What happened in here? The flashes were blinding. The adrenaline that had kept me standing vanished. The cold, the real cold from the coolant, flooded my veins. I could not feel my fingers. I could not stop shaking. My teeth were chattering so hard I thought they would break. Luca turned. He ignored every shouted question. He walked past the police, past his neighborhood army, straight to me. He did not say a word. He just took off his heavy, black wool coat, the one that smelled of him, and wrapped it around me. He pulled me against his side, tucking me in, turning his body to shield me completely from the cameras. He put his hand on the back of my head, guiding my face into his chest. I was hidden. I was safe. I leaned my entire weight against him. And he held me up. All I could hear was the frantic, steady hammering of his heart against my ear. The cameras flashed, capturing the image. The next morning, Mr. Rossi brought me the paper. The headline was stark, splashed across the entire front page. Little reader finds a note in bread. The Mafia boss shields her from the crowd as the port war ends. The storm broke. The rain softened. The world that rushed in to replace the chaos of the warehouse was cold, gray, and procedural. I spent 6 hours at the precinct with Detective Park, who was no longer isolated. She was in charge. I gave my statement. My live stream, which had broadcast for nearly 3 minutes before Gianni's men cut the power, had been mirrored and saved by dozens of people. When combined with Marco's analog tapes, which were clean, clear, and damning, the case was not just solid. It was granite. Gianni Vassallo's arrest triggered an avalanche. The Clean Port Initiative collapsed. The mayor was implicated. Federal investigators descended on Girasol Freight, freezing its assets, seizing its trucks, and digging into its algorithms. The 2 corrupt officers from Pier 43, the ones who had been looking at their phones, were the first to fall. They gave up everyone they could. Several other officers in the precinct were indicted, their clean reputations exposed as a lie bought by Gianni's money. A fund for the victims was established, using the money seized from Girasol. It was managed by a non-profit that specialized in human trafficking recovery. Maria, Anna, and the third girl, Lena, were moved to a safe, therapeutic home upstate. They were survivors, not just victims. I did not see Luca for 2 days. He had vanished after driving me home from the precinct, his coat still wrapped around my shoulders. He just said, "Get some sleep. Clara, it is over." But I knew it was not over for him. While the city's legal system ground Gianni's empire to dust, I went back to the bakery. The yellow closed sticker was still on the door. Mr. Rossi and I stood outside, just looking at it. "He ruined me, Clara," he whispered, his face gray. "No," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "He tried. I called Detective Park. I told her about the inspectors, the anonymous, false tips. It took one phone call from her. The next day, a different set of inspectors arrived. They were polite, apologetic. They declared the closure an error based on malicious reporting, a result of the ongoing criminal investigation into Girasol Freight. The sticker came down. We spent a full day just cleaning, scrubbing the floors, firing up the massive ovens, feeding the sourdough starter. The smell of warm bread began to chase the ghosts out of the corners. When we opened the doors 3 days after the warehouse, we did not know if anyone would come. They came in a line that stretched down the block, longer than the one for the community bread day. But this time, they were quiet. They did not come for a media event. They came to stand with us. They bought bread, they bought coffee. They looked at me, some with awe, some with pity. Mrs. Chow from the laundromat just pressed my hand. Mr. Alvini, the butcher, dropped $100 bill into the tip jar. By the end of the day, we had changed the label on the jar. It now read, Pier 43 Survivors Fund. It was overflowing. The note bread was no longer a symbol of fear. It was our symbol of vigilance. The press was relentless. They did not care about the bakery. They cared about the little reader. They wanted my face. They wanted my story. And they wanted the girls' stories. I agreed to one interview with a quiet, sharp reporter from a national newspaper. We met at the library. "The girls are not available," I told her before she could even ask. "You will not print their faces. You will not print their real names, or the countries they came from. You will not exploit their trauma for a headline. They are healing. They are not part of your story." "But you are," she said, her pen poised. "You can tell the story of the note," I said. "You can tell the story of a community that was scared and how it stood up. But this is not a fairy tale. It is not finished. They are human beings. Treat them that way." I had set a boundary, and she respected it. I was a community figure now. I had a voice, and I was learning to use it to protect others, not just myself. Luca finally reappeared late that night. The rain had stopped. The air was washed clean, and the sky was a deep, clear black. I was in my small apartment, unable to sleep, looking out the window at the lights of the Brooklyn Bridge. I heard a sound on the rooftop fire escape. He was just standing there, looking out at the city. He wore a different coat, but he looked exhausted. The shadows under his eyes were dark and deep. I did not hesitate. I went to my kitchen, took the loaf of sourdough I had baked for myself that evening, and climbed out the window. I offered him the loaf. It was still warm. The smell of the steam, the familiar scent of yeast and scorched flour, rose between us. He took it. His fingers brushed mine. He did not eat. He just held it like an anchor. "They are angry," he said, his voice low. He was not talking about Gianni. He was talking about his family. "I went to see them," he said. "My father's captains, the old guard. They are furious, not because I stopped Gianni, but because of how I stopped him. You did not kill him," I whispered. "No, I let the police take him. I let the law have him. I let the federal government seize his assets." He turned to look at me, his face carved from shadow. "They wanted a war. Clara, they wanted Girasol burned to the ground. They wanted revenge. They do not understand this. They do not understand using a warrant instead of a bomb. They see it as weak. What did you tell them? I told them the old way is finished. I told them my logistics company, the one I am building, is legitimate. I told them any business, any connection between us and them is severed. I am cutting all ties. I am choosing this. He looked at the bread in his hands. They think I am a fool. Maybe I am. You are not a fool, I said. You are the man who chose to turn a crank instead of firing a gun. You are the man who faced his father's legacy and said no. We were silent for a moment, the city humming below us, the breach between us, the one created by his need to control and my need for independence, was still there, a raw edge. I'm sorry, he said. I was startled. For what? For wanting to lock you away. For the safe house. He met my gaze, his own full of a raw honesty that mirrored his confession in the alley. My father taught me that to protect something. You possess it. You put it in a box. You hide it. When I saw you, when you were in this, my first instinct was to treat you like property, to put you in a cage and stand guard. That is not protection. It is just a different kind of violence. I was not going to let you, I said softly. I know, he said. A small, tired smile touched his mouth. You are the most stubborn woman I have ever met. I promise you, Clara, I will always stand between you and the cameras. I will always be the shield. But I will never, ever stand in your way again. I will not take away your choice. It was a vow. And I promise, I said, meeting his vow with my own. I will not be reckless. I will not go alone. We tell each other the truth. No more running off to piers with zip-tie cutters. He laughed. It was a real sound, low and warm, and it startled me. That would be good. A few days later, the last pieces settled. Olivia Park stopped by the bakery. She was wearing a new, sharp blazer, and the weary lines around her eyes were gone. She looked light. They are cleaning house at the precinct, she said, accepting a coffee from Mr. Rossi. And I have been offered the lead on the new Port Authority Joint Task Force. They are giving me real resources, real power, to make sure this never happens again. And Marco, I asked Luca later that day. Marco is happy, Luca said. He is my new operations manager. At my clean, legitimate logistics company, he's teaching my new drivers all the old non-digital routes. He says you can never trust a computer. The warehouse, Nido, sat empty, a black hole at the edge of the harbor, seized by the city. But Luca, he did not let it go to auction. He bought it. He used his own clean money. When I asked him why, he just said, "It is an ugly place. Let's make it something else." We did. It took a month. Luca paid for the structural repairs. He had the steel doors removed, the coolant lines ripped out. Mr. Rossi and his watchers came and built a small, simple wooden stage, and Mrs. Chow and her family helped us scrub the concrete floors. We hung strings of warm, yellow lights. I posted a new event on the library's official blog. A multilingual reading night, a safe harbor, all are welcome. The night of the event, the warehouse was unrecognizable. It was full. The light from the strings overhead glowed warm on the faces of my neighborhood. Mr. Rossi, Mrs. Chow, Mr. Alvini, Olivia Park, Marco Bianchi. And in the front row sat Maria, Anna, and Lena. They were nervous, but they were here. I stood on the stage, the same spot where Gianni Vassallo had laughed at me. This place was a shadow. I said, my voice carrying over the quiet crowd. It was a place where people were treated like objects, where their voices were stolen. Tonight, we fill it with light. We fill it with our voices. I read a story, a simple story about a baker who finds a message of hope. Then, Maria stood up. She walked to the stage, her hands shaking, and she read a poem in Spanish. Her voice was small, but it was clear. When she finished, the room was silent, and then it exploded in applause. A woman from the shelter stood and read in her native tongue. A man I did not know read a passage from a book he had brought. I looked over at Luca. He was standing in the back, by the open doors, the city lights glittering behind him. He was not shielding me. He was not guarding me. He was just watching me, his face calm, and in his eyes I saw something I had not seen before. Peace. We had taken the darkest place in our city, and we had filled it with words. 1 year, that is how long it has been. 12 months, 365 days since the storm broke over Warehouse Nido. Luca's company is no longer just a small logistics firm. He renamed it Harbor and Hearth Logistics. It is transparent. Every manifest is public. Every truck is tracked by a system that Olivia Park's new task force can access. He did not just cut ties with his father's world. He built a fortress of legitimacy against it. His operations manager, Marco Bianchi, is the happiest, grumpiest old man in Brooklyn. He runs the drivers with an iron fist and a full heart. Sunrise and Sons is more than a bakery now. It is a classroom. Twice a week, I stop being a baker and I become a teacher. We run a vocational baking program for survivors from the fund, for anyone who needs a new start. Maria, her hands no longer shaking, is my best student. She can shape a baguette better than I can. She says the dough, the warmth of it, feels like hope. Anna and Lena are both taking classes at the community college. The Pier 43 Survivors Fund pays for their tuition. The fund's logo, which is now on a small, discreet plaque outside the library, is a simple line drawing a loaf of bread, with a single piece of paper emerging from it. Pier 43, the place of rust and shadows, is now the Pier 43 Community Center. The warehouse, Nido, is its heart. The city council, in the wake of the political scandal, was shamed into funding its renovation. Where Gianni's refrigerated container once stood, there is now a reading nook for children. Where he trapped us, there is now a small stage. I found myself on that stage often. The documentary was called The Algorithm of Dignity. It was not a sensational piece. It was a long, quiet, angry look at how technology, in the hands of men like Gianni, was being used to dehumanize people. Olivia Park and I, we were in it. We went to public schools. We went to colleges. We talked about it. She talked about the law. I talked about the girl who loved sourdough bread. Luca, in his own quiet way, made his own statement. He paid for a new port-wide analog backup camera system, hardwired with magnetic tapes. Just like Marco's, he gave the keys, the only keys, to Olivia's task force. He told the press, in his one and only interview, a man should never have more faith in a computer than in his conscience. I did not see Luca every day. He was busy. I was busy. He was building his company. I was running the bakery and the program at Nido. But we were never far apart. He still sent me a text every night, just 2 words. You safe? And I would text back, yes, you. Tonight, he texted something different. Meet me, the roof. I knew which one, The roof of Nido, the roof of the community center. I climbed the metal stairs. The air was cool, the way it had been that first night we stood on my fire escape. He had strung the same yellow lights we used for the first reading night. They crisscrossed the roof, creating a canopy of soft, warm stars against the dark Brooklyn sky. He was not wearing a suit. He was wearing jeans and a simple dark sweater. He was just Luca. He was standing at the edge, looking at the lights of the Manhattan skyline. The real stars hidden by the city's glow. "It is beautiful up here," I said, joining him. "It is a good place," he said. He did not look at me. Not yet. "A good place to remember." "Remember what?" "That we won," he said. "That we took a dark place and we made it bright." He turned to me. He was not afraid, the way he had been in the alley, confessing his father's shadow. He was not intense, the way he had been in the car, promising protection. He was just calm. He was the man I had seen in the back of the warehouse, watching me read, finally at peace. "That headline," he said, his voice quiet. "The one in the paper. Little reader finds a note in bread. The Mafia boss shields her from the crowd as the port war ends." "I remember," I said. It felt like a lifetime ago. "It was a good headline," he said. "Accurate, but it was incomplete. It was just the first part of the story. The rest of it has not been written yet." He reached into his pocket. He did not pull out a ring, not a box. He pulled out a small, simple, folded piece of white paper. "Clara Santos," he said, his voice low and steady. "You are the baker and the reader and the woman who taught me that strength is not about violence, but about choice. You are the bravest person I have ever known." He held out the piece of paper. "I was wondering, would you want to read the rest of your life's headline with me?" My hands were shaking, not from cold, not from fear. I took the paper from his hand. I unfolded it. It was empty. I looked up at him, confused. I saw the laughter in his eyes. "It is blank," I whispered. "I know," he said, "because we get to write it together." I laughed, a sound that felt as bright and as warm as the lights above us. "Luca de Luca, you are—" "What?" he asked, a real smile spreading across his face. "You are ridiculous," I said. Yes, I will." He did not kiss me then. He just took my hand, the one holding the blank piece of paper, and held it. "We will write it," I said, leaning my head against his shoulder, looking out at the city, with flower and rain. Our wedding was not a media event. It was not a grand affair. It was small. It was in the old stone chapel of St. Agnes, the one in our neighborhood, the one with the bells that rang every hour. The pews were not filled with his family's old guard. They were filled with ours, Mr. Rossi, who cried through the entire service, Mrs. Chow and her family, Mr. Alvini, Olivia Park, in a sharp blue dress, sitting next to Marco Bianchi, who wore a suit that was 20 years out of style. In the front row sat Maria, Anna, and Lena. We did not have a towering sugared confection for a cake. Mr. Rossi and I, with Maria's help, had baked it ourselves. It was a massive 20-pound loaf of pane di casa, rustic, dark, and beautiful. And when Luca and I made the first cut, our hands covering each other's on the long serrated knife, the blade hit something. Paper. This time, I was not afraid. This time, I was not alone. In front of our family, our community. I reached into the warm, steaming center of the loaf. I pulled out a small folded piece of white paper, wrapped in wax. I unfolded it and read it aloud, my voice clear and strong. Choose each other. Every storm. The final scene. It is late. It is raining again. Not a storm, just a soft, steady, cleansing rain. We are not in an apartment. We are at the bakery. It is after midnight. We are not there for work. We are there because we love it. Luca is leaning against the counter, his sleeves rolled up. I am covered in flour. We are testing a new recipe. The ovens are on, the warmth pushing back the night. The smell of baking bread, of life, of yeast and heat, filling the small space. He watches me as I pull a loaf from the oven. The crust crackles in the cool air, a sound like a small, contented fire. It still amazes me, he says, his voice a low rumble in the quiet shop. How you do that, how you take nothing, flour, water, and you make a home. I place the loaf on the cooling rack. I look at him, the man who was born in shadows, but chose the light. The man who was taught violence, but chose kindness. The man who shielded me from the crowd and then stood beside me, letting me choose my own way. The rain patters against the glass. The aroma of the bread fills the street. He walks over to me. He does not touch me. He just stands there, breathing in the scent with me. We did not burn the world. Clara, he whispers. I lean into his side, my floury shoulder pressed against his clean sweater. No, I say, looking at the warm, golden loaf. We baked it. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I am so curious. Where in the world are you listening from right now? Please let me know in the comments. I would love to connect and share our thoughts. If you enjoyed this journey, please consider subscribing to my channel, Mafia Boss Stories, and give this video a like. And if you want to help this story reach even more people, please press that hype button. Your support means everything.